Yay, gente, it's your girl Naz, and today I want to talk to you a little bit more about something that I've been reading a lot about and that I find super interesting, so I want to share. And it's going to be about the diversity of Brazil. So, what makes it such a diverse country? Let's get into it. So, something really interesting about Brazil, it's the one country I noticed that depending on where you go in the country, you're going to see that people look a little bit different. So, if we look at, for instance, south of Brazil, we're going to find a lot more white people. If we go to north of Brazil, we're going to see a lot more black people. If we go to Sao Paulo, for instance, you're going to see a lot of Japanese, a lot of Lebanese people. If we go to Rio, that's where you see people are a little bit more mixed, a lot more people are brown skin and so forth, because the diversity of the country is huge. So in order to understand why there are so many people from different backgrounds in Brazil, we're going to have to go back at the history. So first things first, Brazil is the only country in South America that actually speaks Portuguese, not Spanish. Why? Because they were colonized by Portugal. Now, there was a guy one time in the 1500s, he was in the ocean, making his way down to India, but then he stumbled upon Brazil, and he was like, oh snap, there's so many resources here that I can exploit and trade and make a lot of money for Portugal, so let me jump on that train. So that's exactly what he did. Of course, the land was filled with a lot of indigenous people. There was about, I think, 4 or 5 million indigenous people, and most of them came from the Tupi tribe. And yeah, basically settlers came in. They decided to use indigenous people as slaves. It was horrible. They assimilated them, tortured them. A lot of them died. The population went all the way down to about 1 million. So 4 million killed. Could you imagine? Anyway, and then of course the trading grew. So that's when they decided to bring also people from Africa to act as slaves. And they mostly took people that were from Portuguese colonies in Africa. So for instance, Angola, a certain part of Congo also, which is now part of Angola as well, Mozambique, and then Brazil was actually also the country that had the most people brought in as slaves compared to any other country in Americas. So with that being said, there was a huge population of indigenous and Africa that were brought into Brazil. So that already created a big diversity right there from the start. After that, once the slave trade was finally abolished, Brazil was also the last country to abolish slavery, by the way. A lot of also people from European descent, so people from Europe, Italy, Germany, Portugal, Spain, made their way into the south of Brazil to help with a lot of the agriculture work. So they needed more labor workers for that, and that's where they came in to support that. Also, Europeans were not the only ones that made their way to Brazil when slavery ended to help with labor. We're also talking about a lot of people from Lebanon and a lot of people from Japan. So Brazil actually gave these two countries employment contracts. I believe for Lebanon, there was just a lot of political issues, economical issues, and so forth. When it came to Japan, there was a lot of overpopulation. So a lot of these people were just open to new opportunities and made their way to Brazil. Sao Paulo actually has the largest population of Japanese people outside of Japan. And Brazil actually has the largest population of people of African descent outside of Africa. It literally started raining, so I'm continuing this video the next day. So a question I often ask myself is, if I compare to, let's say, the United States, they also had people brought in from Africa to act as slaves. They also had indigenous people, although Brazil did have the most slaves from everybody. We're talking about close to 5 million people. But why isn't that people in Brazil still look more mixed? The reason for that is also because of the way that the Portuguese colonized. They had a completely different strategy in place. One of the strategies that they had was they did not want segregation. They actually were trying to enforce interracial marriages. Why? Because they wanted to enforce assimilation further. By having, let's say, Portuguese people marry indigenous people, people from Africa, it was forcing the Portuguese way onto these people, making them forget everything about their roots and their ancestry. So they were forced to learn Portuguese, forced to become Catholic, forced to really implement all Portuguese traditions. There was no segregation, but it does not mean that there was no racism. There was still a hell of a lot of racism. Anyway, if we compare it to, let's say, the British colonized the United States, they had a completely other strategy, and that was to enforce segregation. They actually had segregation laws in place. So they did not want any mixing for a reason, because they wanted to keep their hierarchy. They wanted to keep white and black people separate. So there was actually laws in place against interracial marriages, which prevented people from mixing further. So in Brazil, mixing started very, very early on, which is why today we see so many diverse people and so many people that are mixed. And if we look at today, there's still also a lot of preservation that we find until this day. So for instance, when it comes to Brazilian Portuguese, a lot of influence actually does come from the Tupi language. Even when it comes to, let's say, the dance capoeira, that was actually created by the people that were enslaved from Africa, with also some indigenous influence to it, and it's still practiced until this day. So there's a lot that people do to kind of resist and to maintain their culture and their ancestry in Brazil, and I think that also adds a lot to the diversity of the country. So that's a wrap. I hope you guys enjoyed the video.